super, super excited for today's space. We're going to be going through a lot of really good stuff. We're going to talk about Pixels as a project. We're going to talk about what we're building, go through the white paper a little bit. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the exciting new partnership that we recently announced with Gridcraft. So I think we could probably get started pretty soon here.
Yeah, this will be recorded. We're expecting a good amount of people listen to this afterwards too. This is a information, a ton of alpha on what's to come, the Pixels project, the cross-project integration. This will probably be one of those AMAs that we point people back to a lot, saying, hey, this is the AMA that you want to listen to if you want to get information on the white paper, if you want to get information on the partnership with Gridcraft and what that's going to look like. Obviously, we'll talk about it more in the future, but this will be a pretty big AMA in terms of all that, because there's just so much new information in this AMA that we are kind of unloading onto you guys. And yeah, we're super about this. So I think we can get this started relatively soon. And again, this will be recorded. So if you can't stay the whole time, that's okay. The general format will be that we will go over high level what we've been building, what we just announced, what we're releasing. And then we've taken some questions beforehand just to make sure that we don't miss any bases. We are going to be answering these questions that we've linked to in the type form. And then also, if you guys have any questions as they come up, you can post them in our Discord. The link is in the description of the Pixels Twitter, or you can go to discord.gg/pixels, post some questions there, or we'll even bring you up on this space. So a lot of options to get your questions answered. I'm sure there's going to be a lot. We have a lot to go over. So I think we're just going to jump right into it now.
Let's do it.
Okay, sweet. So I just want to give you guys a high-level overview of what Pixels is first, because we have a lot of new people listening to this. We have a lot of new people on the project, or maybe you've taken a break from the project and you're just coming back now. So high level, Pixels is a play-to-earn game that's kind of built around the NFTs that you already own, and we are kind of leading the space in interoperability. We've been looking for ways to make the game as interoperable as possible, and that's what's kind of in line with all these projects that we're doing. So for the last 6 months, we've been heads down building our own game. The game is called Pixels as well, so there might be a little bit of confusion with that, and we'll get some language that kind of clears it up. There's kind of two concepts here. There's Pixels the game, and then there's the Pixels universe, which is more than just our game. So the game that we've been building for the last 6 months, and if you want to take a look at what it looks like, you can go to play.pixels.xyz to kind of see the art, the game mechanics, and all of that. But we've been building a Stardew Valley-inspired MMO. We've been focusing on building out that kind of experience that makes the game feel really nice, really clean, polished, and kind of relaxing. We're targeting an audience of gamers and Web3 players who are looking for a Web3 game that actually feels really fun to play, that feels relaxing, that's kind of an escape from work, and gives our players a nice, chilled out experience, if we can say that. So we've been focusing around 3 core loops: gathering, collecting, and building. The mechanics that you guys have seen now have really focused on gathering. And we have this first mechanic that's actually in our pre-alpha that's live right now, farming. So what we've been building for the last couple of months is actually a lot more ways to gather new resources, a lot of different ways to collect new resources, and different things you can build and upgrade on the land that you own. We have 2 tokens that are releasing in order to facilitate this game loop that we're creating. We have Berry and we have Pixel that are releasing. These are releasing in the end of Q3, early Q4, and that's when the release of our game, Pixels, is actually coming out. So we are kind of releasing our game in what we call chapters. We've been heads down building. We have a pre-alpha that's out now. We're actually calling it the prologue. We have chapter 1 of Pixels that's releasing early Q4. So while we've been releasing this game, though, we've been doing some pretty interesting things that we haven't even really been talking about. So we've been taking what we call a new school development approach to how we build the game. Essentially, what our developers do is as they build out our game mechanics, they're not actually directly building out game mechanics. What they've actually been doing is they've been building out tooling for our game designers to build game mechanics on top of. So every single thing that you see in game was actually built directly by a designer using one of the tools to build the ecosystem of our game. The interesting thing that we've done over the last couple of months, or actually the last couple of days, is actually we've decided to open up our tooling so that other projects can use our tooling. This is really pushing the limits in what's possible with interoperability. And it might be a little bit confusing. We go really in depth in this in our white paper that you can see. The link should be in our links in bio as well too. And Heidi, you actually might be able to share that if able to, the white paper.
On it.
Yeah, but essentially what we've done is we've opened up our tooling to other projects, and that's what you guys have seen when we're talking about this partnership with Llamascape and Gridcraft. So essentially, instead of just having Pixels land available on our tooling and infrastructure, also fully integrate Llamascape Land and Gridcraft Land and their own tokens as well. There's really, really interesting stuff with that can be coming. But essentially, we're going to offer game loops available to these other projects. They get to design their own game. They get to design their own experience. They just get to use our tooling and our infrastructure, and we get to allow them to have this shared universe. So there's a lot of stuff with that. And I think what might be helpful is we've had a lot of questions in regards to how all of this works. So it actually might be the best to explain it by just going through what people have been asking about this. Yeah, so if you guys look at that, if you guys are curious, we just shared a Twitter thread that we wrote on the whole topic, and it actually might be helpful if I just kind of read this out loud. So we've been spending the last year building out metaverse technology and blockchain game tooling as we develop Pixels. Pixels is a play and earn game heavily inspired by Stardew Valley. We've been building Pixels to be the gateway for millions into Web3. We think that there's a huge market to onboard people into Web3 with a really family-friendly, fun, and casual game experience. However, we've been building tooling to make this happen, and we think we can expand to multiple audiences and offer a ton of tooling for other projects by opening up this ecosystem. So that's where this Gridcraft partnership comes into. Gridcraft landowners will get access to their land, and they'll be hosted by our infrastructure, allowing their incredibly strong community to actually grow in our own tooling. They get to create their own game loops. They get to create their own game experience. It's a separate game. It's a separate game loop, but it's hosted on our infrastructure. So the whole idea behind these cross-project integrations is that we don't want to control their economy. We want to give these projects full autonomy to create new game loops, to create their own experience. We really want these projects to feel like their own. We just want to give them the tooling and the infrastructure in order to make that happen. So we'll offer a lot of different ways and a lot of different options and flexibilities for these other projects. If they want, they'll be able to actually create new tokens with our infrastructure. If they want, we can actually provide you burn mechanisms for their token too. But at the end of the day, their game economies are in their hands, and we're actually pretty hands off from that. We're just giving them tools in order to best facilitate that. So with that, Gridcraft players will actually be able to use bits in the game however they see fit. So we're working with Gridcraft and Llamascape to see how they want to actually integrate the token, if they want to actually rely on any of our token generation tooling, or if they just want to use our tooling for burn mechanisms. And when we say burn mechanisms, essentially what we'll give Llamascape and Gridcraft access to is an in-game store. So players will actually be able to purchase in-game items with this currency that they have bits or potentially even spit. And we can also open that to other projects as well too. And they'll be able to buy in-game items that kind of affect their own in-game economy. And it's separate from the Pixels economy, and it's separate from our own economy. But what's the interesting thing here is that there's one thing that brings all of these experiences together, and it's the Pixel token. So the Pixel token, which we are airdropping exclusively to players of our Play to Earn beta right now. If you go and play at play.pixels.xyz, that's where that airdrop is accessible from. And landowners of our own land NFT. The details of this airdrop are secret, actually. We actually can't release too much info around it because we don't want this airdrop to be gamed. But just know this Pixel token, which acts as a currency and a link between all of these experiences, will be airdropped to landowners of our Pixels NFTs and players of our Play to Earn beta. So that's all described in the white paper. But this is basically a premium currency. So if you guys are familiar with gaming monetization, we actually think that this is pretty new in the blockchain space, and we're pretty confident this is going to be copied by other projects in the future, because this is how other games monetize, and this is just kind of how it makes sense to actually create value for a token ecosystem. If you actually care about creating long-term value for a token ecosystem, we're essentially offering two currencies in our own experience. We're offering a berry token, and we're offering a pixel token. The berry token is the token that will progress you through our in-game loops in the Pixels universe. So we've added a bunch of new game mechanics. Essentially, in our own game, Pixels, how you progress through the game is you will gain levels and experience, and you'll also earn a berry token for everything that you do. So just like the in-game coin in the ecosystem right now, if you actually play the game right now, go to play.pixels.xyz, you'll be able to earn coins in-game. Berry is going to be the substitute for that. To earn this coin, basically you'll just engage in various industries. So right now, the industry that you know and are playing with right now is planting, but there will be other industries moving forward too. Things like apiary, things like wood cutting, things like mining. These are all things that are getting worked on and will be available in the Pixels ecosystem, and will basically offer alternative ways to earn this berry token. And you'll actually have to kind of make decisions on which industry you want to invest your time and energy into in order to earn this token. But essentially, the progression loop and the way that you make progress in game is by earning this berry token. However, that's separate from the premium currency Pixel. So one mistake that a lot of projects make is they tie game progression to the token that they're trying to monetize off of, or they're trying to maintain value of. This creates a really weird misaligned incentive where if the token price changes drastically, one, if it gets too expensive or if it gets too cheap, that actually drastically affects gameplay and usage of this token. We've seen this with Axie Infinity, where they had a double-edged sword there. When SLP got too expensive, it actually became too expensive for players to enter into Axie Infinity to actually play the game. And when they got too cheap, people left the game because they actually didn't want to play the game. They were only in it for the token incentive for that currency. So you really don't want a game to have its economy tightly tied to a speculative asset. That's really, really bad for it. And not that it's a speculative asset, but it is an asset that we can control the supply of much, much more carefully, and we can have control over several variables that way. So Pixel is a premium currency in game that's shared across these universes that actually doesn't affect the core gameplay loops of any game experience. If you guys have ever played the game Clash of Clans, it's really akin to how coins and gems work in that game. So in Clash of Clans, how gems work is it lets you basically buy cosmetic items, or it lets you speed up build times. It basically makes the experience better, but not pay to win, and it doesn't affect core gameplay loops. That's kind of the idea behind the Pixel token too. So we're thinking about ways that we can actually utilize it in order to make sure that the token still has a lot of in-game value, that people want to be using it, but it doesn't affect the core gameplay experience. Because at the end of the day, these tokens are only really valuable if we're actually creating value to people. And the way to create value with an in-game economy is by making sure that people actually like the game that you're playing, that they're getting value from gameplay experiences and not from the expectation of earning money. So if you create a token ecosystem where people are buying into it because they want to speculate on it, and they're not actually deriving value from the gameplay or from progressing in the game, that creates a really bad incentive, and it creates a bad and unhealthy ecosystem. When people are talking about sustainability in tokenomics, what they really mean, and our take on this, is that sustainability comes through people owning a token because they want to use it for something in game. And that's how we're setting this up. So the premium currency model and the two token model is how we're thinking about this. So we've gotten a lot of questions about how we plan to do all of this. I think one of the first things that we should address for our own Pixels community is how we're changing land ownership. So Heidi, I think there's some questions to read through that, and I think we can maybe talk about that a bit more first.
Sure. Okay. In the type form here or from the white paper?
In the Notion, I've
Oh,
created some
gotcha.
questions. Yeah, so I can read the first one. So we've had some questions related to how we handle land ownership in our own ecosystem, in the Pixels game ecosystem. And if you read a white paper, we have a whole section on this, but there are some key things to note. So we made some changes to how we handle land ownership in Pixels. We came across the really interesting game design dilemma when we were designing the future of the Pixels gameplay loops. So if we were to build a game that was just targeted at the people who currently own land, we would be building a game for like 2,500 people. And we cannot create a sustainable ecosystem of players if we're only building a game for 2,500 people. So we had to figure out a way to create gameplay mechanics and draw in more people who are willing to, one, use land in interesting ways, and then two, have some kind of free to play experience. So what we came up with was this idea of new land types that are very different than the NFT land, provide different utility, but also offer a free to play experience. So we've introduced two new tiers of land. They're called specs and rentable land. So essentially, we've created a free to play experience that's really, really limited and basically offers some kind of path to progression in game through what we're calling specs. I wish we could show a picture of what these specs look like, but essentially they're laughably small pieces of free land.
But they're so cute. Come on.
They're really, really cute. And they're also single player only. So that's a big distinction. And they're extremely limited in what kind of resources they're able to produce, what kind of things are able to be put on the land. Essentially, you'll get the free to play players will get access to some like initial hooks into the ecosystem, but we're creating compelling hooks into one, visiting other land, and it'll actually be essential to visit other land in order to progress in the game. And then we're creating desirability for these pieces of like Pixels farmland through these core game loops as well too. So that's kind of a big change. I would really highly recommend reading the white paper on the plan around that. But yes, essentially we're adding a free-to-play version of land. It's going to be limited in what kind of resources you can gather on it. They're extremely limited in size. It's single player only, but it's a way for players who are just getting introduced into the ecosystem to progress and like actually want to use, one, the land of landowners, and then two, the token that we're airdropping to all of you guys as well too. So if you guys can see, or I think we've gotten some questions around this. In the white paper, we've said that you can use Pixel to mint more land. When we say that you can use Pixel to mint more land, we mean these free-to-play lands. So the ones that you can kind of progress through in the game, but not the NFT land. So the NFT land is going to be a different tier of land. One, it'll be multiplayer. Two, it'll get access to different types of resources that no other types of land will be able to get access to. Three, you're going to see the NFT traits reflected in this land, the NFT land you guys actually own. So the things like space, things like water, and the things like land, those will all be reflected in the NFT traits. And those traits specifically will lead to a different variety of crops, a different variety of like wood and other resources that you will not be able to get access to anywhere else in the game except on these types of land. And then if you notice too on the white paper, you'll also see that we're creating tiers of resources. So that's a pretty important thing as well too. There's essentially different rarities of resources that will unlock different recipes, that will unlock different things so you can craft and build as you progress through our game. And these tiers of recipes will only be available on the premium lands, the lands that are actually NFTs. So essentially, the whole tricky problem of this game design was figuring out a way that we can attract free players, but then still creating a huge desirability of the owned land. So essentially, in order to progress through the game, you are going to have to find different pieces of land to go onto to get these resources that you would not be able to get to in any other part of the game. So it's a pretty interesting game loop that creates desirability for the land and also allows free-to-play users to progress in game and have a reason to actually want to use your land and also a reason to want to use this pixel token.
Okay. Do you want to continue down like what you've planned here then? Do you want to talk about the token integration a little bit more, partnership, or do you want to head over to the type form questions?
Yeah, so I put all the type form questions in that Notion document, actually, Heidi, and I
Okay,
categorized
perfect.
them on like topics. So we've gotten a few different topics on the navigation between different lands. We've gotten a few questions on the tokenomics, the changes that we're making to the land, the cross token integration, and the general partnership, and the airdrop too. Some game mechanics, some cross game utility. Yeah, there's a lot to go over. So
Okay, let's run through it
choose a
then, all right?
topic. Yeah, choose a topic and let's run
Okay,
it through.
all right, let's just start from the top. Navigation. Gridcraft has staking and an interactive map to access lands. Will any of this tech be shared slash collab with farmlands?
Yes, that's the awesome thing about these project integrations. These projects that we're integrating with have some asks, and potentially any ask that we get can be shared between the ecosystem. So Gridcraft has a map that kind of lays out their land in a pretty like decided order. So there's different sizes of their land. There are like different locations, and we can actually support that map. So essentially, we're working with their team eventually to do this. This should be more than ready by the time that we actually grant Gridcraft their land access. You'll be able to click on their map that they're creating and go directly to that piece of land. We're also working on like cross land navigation to see what that looks like. So we've internally redesigned our own navigation. So how you get to farms, we don't love that whole UX of you having to go manually to different farm URLs. We've actually redesigned how the navigation works. There's some cool stuff with that. Our game designer has come up with this idea of the road. It's essentially this road that will like get built under your feet as you walk land to land and hop land to land. Land discovery is a really big part of the next core game loop because you're going to need to go to different pieces of land to get different resources if you want to actually progress in the game, make your land better, and all of that too. This land discovery in our own game is really important, and yeah, we can unlock that for other projects as well too. So Gridcraft's navigation will work differently than our navigation. Llamascape has requested a different type of navigation too that we can support. Theirs is cool. I'm trying not to spill these other projects' alpha because I want to have them release it on their own. But yeah, essentially 3 of these will have slightly different navigation schemes, but we can support them all. So it's pretty interesting tech that we have for that.
I'm so excited for this. All right, okay. Navigation to privately owned lands is only through URLs today. What are the plans around moving between lands, and will Gridcraft provide any of this?
Yeah. So Gridcraft is going to have their own navigation system. We're going to have our own too. We'll probably share some of the things between it, but we will support Gridcraft's native map. That's pretty easy for us to technically do. Their navigation will probably be through that map and clicking on the different pieces of land to get there. Totally able to support that. That's actually a very similar system to our URL system, where essentially you'll just click on that and go directly to the link.
All right, moving on to tokenomics, which you've already talked a lot about, so we can kind of whip through this one. But what type of utility is envisioned between various metaverse projects as it relates to the Pixels coin?
Yeah, so the idea is we actually don't interfere with any other game economy. That's the really important thing. So we want Gridcraft and Llamascape to both be able to control the supply of their own tokens, have free reign to do whatever they want with it. We just want to give them tools if they request it in order to maybe facilitate other things. So like one common thing in the space is like a lot of these projects are lacking burn mechanisms. And that's one thing they'll actually be able to provide very, very well for other projects. Be able to give them tons of burn mechanisms. I'm essentially being able to buy in-game items with these tokens. So most projects tend to want that. Most projects tend to want to control supply on their own through staking, through whatever they want. So we can be hands off on that, let them decide that, and then just give them tools in order to make their experience even better. So then how that relates to pixels though is again, it's the same exact thing with our own token with the berry and pixel kind of mindset where the berry token is its own economy and the pixel token is unrelated to that. So the pixel token will be used to purchase upgrades to your character in this shared profile system between universes. So one interesting piece of tech that we built are all of these NFT integrations that let you use NFTs that you already own as your avatar in game. We're working on the identity integration right now. That's actually going to be our biggest integration technically because there's so many different identity combinations out there from Gridcraft. But that shared profile system and that shared avatar system will be available across all projects, and also there will be a shared inventory system across all projects as well too. So you'll be able to actually move items that you're in pixels into Gridcraft into Llamascape. The difference is that you actually probably won't be able to have utility of a lot of these items. So for example, one example our community might understand is you can buy soil in pixels, place it down on your farm and use it to plant seeds. You'll still be able to actually put down soil onto Gridcraft land, but in Gridcraft, it wouldn't do anything. It would just be cosmetic. So there'll be shared items in there and shared inventories. And then in terms of Pixel, what Pixel actually unlocks is like a lot of character effects. So we can add things like a glow to your character. We can add like new emotes, like pet, things that don't affect the core gameplay of any other experience that are just nice to haves, fun things. That's kind of the idea. So we're going to look more and more into the utility of premium currency. That's always what we'll be looking at. But the key thing is it'll be shared between these universes, but it will not affect the gameplay of any experience.
Okay, this is an interesting question. In terms of Pixel, like the token, players would need to buy it from the coin market only, or is it possible to pay by credit card in game?
Yeah, so the distribution of Pixel, I think it's clever. We've been brainstorming this one for a long time. So essentially how it will work is we are going to be creating it's a really arbitrary number, but I promise you it works. And I can get into the modeling in a different AMA maybe. But essentially we're going to be creating a new amount of pixel into the economy every single day. The number right now is 100,000 pixel tokens. You might say that's a lot, but essentially that's a really arbitrary number. What really matters is the prices of the items that are used to purchase, or that Pixels is used to purchase for. So it's an arbitrary number. The important thing with that arbitrary number is that we don't airdrop too much of the token, or we don't airdrop too little of the token. So that's where that number actually matters in terms of how much of the token is actually getting distributed. But essentially, 100,000 new tokens are going to come into the economy single day, and we get to distribute it based on where we think good in-game behavior is. So there will be new tokens coming to the game. And we'll probably do a daily reward system to distribute this early on. If you do these tasks, or if you log in twice a day, or if you do this kind of stuff, you'll get this pixel token. The idea is reward good behavior that benefits the economy and strengthens the economy for everybody. But we want to decentralize that process more and more. So essentially, how we're doing it is we decide off chain how this token will be distributed, but we have to approve it on chain. So we can make this more DAO-like in the future in terms of how we actually want to distribute this token, and we can have it actually decentralized. So the whole idea behind how we're building all these systems is gradual decentralization. That requires forethought at the beginning of setting up these systems in a way that can do that. It also allows us to actually distribute the token in smart ways that can allow for a healthier economy all around. So with purchasing the token by a credit card directly, we've seen projects do that successfully in terms of actually getting the token sold and creating revenue for the project. If we were to ever do that, that would be something that we need to decide on the DAO, and that would actually come out of that daily distribution. So in order to not flood the market, this is actually going to be written into the contract of our token. X amount of coins are minted each day. That's it. We'll never be able to increase the daily allotment of tokens that are being distributed into the economy of this pixel token. And that's what we mean when we say it's highly controlled supply. And effectively, actually, that might make the token deflationary. There's things that you can do to potentially make that not deflationary by adjusting store prices and adjusting prices of in-game items. There's fascinating math behind it. I didn't include that in the white paper because I wasn't sure if people were interested, and I wanted to keep the white paper relatively simple. So we have like different internal math and all of our modeling behind this. But essentially, this fixed supply allows us to be very, very controlling of the value of the token externally. and be aware of that as well too. So that might be something that we do eventually, but early on, we really just want to make sure that the token is in the hands of people who actually want to use it in game. So the distribution through daily rewards is good with that, and then two, through exchanges as well. So we are, I think I'm allowed to say this now. Expect the token to be on exchanges day one. Expect there to be liquidity for it. We have partners that we're working with as well. We just cleared this all legally. This is kind of a no-brainer for a lot of exchanges because it's actually extremely clear in the way that we're marketing this, in the way that we've set up the tokenomics, that this is not a security. This is an in-game coin. It gets you stuff in-game. The whole point of it is that people want to use this in the game. So it's been quite easy for us to move through these processes at a kind of accelerated pace. So there's a lot of exciting stuff there. But yeah, expect it to be on exchanges and expect there to be liquidity for this token day one. That'll probably be the primary way to purchase this token. We're open to having easier ways to access this token in the future with the acknowledgement that we don't want easy access to the token to affect any of the supply.
So then what about staking? Will Pixel be stakeable for interest?
If you guys have been following along with this project, I've kind of been anti-staking in terms of just like stake this and get a return. Number one, that is questionable with the future of how cryptocurrency is getting regulated. But then number two, I would much prefer a system that is getting the same outcome as staking, but not staking. So essentially thinking about ways that we can have this currency being used in game that do the same outcome that you would want from staking, but figuring out how to actually work that into the game mechanics. So that's kind of what we're doing with the daily reward system and how we are providing that too. We're looking into liquidity stuff, but we have partnerships in there that make us less worried about liquidity. And these are partnerships that unfortunately other projects have a hard time getting, but our VC backing, this is where you are actually going to see the benefit of it. It's funny that there was a negative connotation to VC in this space for a long time. You're going to start to see where VC actually adds that value, venture capital actually adds that value as these projects that got venture backed start to release their products. We have access to a whole host of resources that other good Web3 projects don't have access to. So that's exciting for us. It puts us in a good position as we're making these next moves and as we're actually gearing up for a launch.
So then token integration. Gridcraft showed hype by using Bits, which is their token, to buy what appeared to be Gridcraft land and farmland. Will Bits be enabled to buy farmland?
So Bits won't be able to buy farmland, but Bits will be able to buy in-game items with their own currency. So the idea is we have all of this tooling. One of the cool tools that we built is a store builder. I think, I guess I can kind of describe to you guys our tooling and what we're actually giving people in game, or I'm sorry, what we're actually giving these projects access to. I think it's in the white paper, but essentially what we've created is we created systems that let you create new in-game items, new quests, new NPCs, new maps, types of land, and a bunch of other really interesting stuff with our tooling that will also integrate into the blockchain. So what we can do for them actually is give them a store that they can put in the game that accepts bits, and you can actually buy in-game items with the bits. So it's a burn mechanism for them. It's a way for you guys to get really cool stuff in game with bits, and it can actually potentially affect the gameplay too. So the process of this integration is basically like we want to get them integrated with the land first. We want to get them land access. Then we want to get them store access. And then we want to see about what other ways we can really differentiate the games besides just theming and besides just setting. So the reason why we're so bullish on this is we actually don't even see these games as competing, like our own game with their own game. What we want to do is we want to give them the tools to really differentiate their experience, target completely different audiences. And essentially what we can do is create win-win scenarios for everybody in this ecosystem. Their holders, their audiences that they're creating for get utility. Our audiences, which are very different, we're targeting like a mid-core casual audience. We want to target a lot of not Web3 people. They get their own experience too. So we get to kind of like really maximize who gets to see this ecosystem, where the reach is, and who uses this pixel token that is getting airdropped to landowners and players of our like play to earn beta.
Honestly, that's the part I'm most excited for with this partnership is the combination of all these communities that we can bring together, but also keep separate in a way, like we all become one under Pixels, but we all have our own games, our own interests, and yeah, it just becomes this like incredible fun universe to participate in together.
Yeah, at the end of the day, why we're so excited about this is because it's a win-win scenario for every single party involved. You guys, people coming from Gridcraft and Llamascape, you guys are going to get this utility really freaking quick. I think, yeah, I've heard some like interest in other projects. I've heard other projects building their own tech. The key difference between us and these other projects is we're pretty much ready to go. We can get you guys access to your land way sooner than you think. We're moving quite quick. I don't know how much your guys' community has like spilled, but our whole MO, our value add here at Pixels is we build incredibly quick. Team works incredibly hard, and we've been quiet, but we've been building so much. And the amount that we get done every 2 weeks is actually insane. I look back at our sprint recaps that we do internally. It's like, oh my god, I cannot believe we just built that much in a 2 week span. So yeah, expect stuff soon. We're super excited to get your guys' communities access to this awesome utility, and it's a win-win for every ecosystem here.
Yeah, those sprint recaps always blow my mind. So yeah, he's not exaggerating. It's crazy. Which actually leads me to the next question. So does Pixels and Gridcraft share the same design team, or is Pixels providing the tooling to a separate game design team for Gridcraft?
So the whole idea here is we're trying to find a balance and making sure that this doesn't distract from our own game teams. We really, really want our game to be successful. We want it to be as good as possible. What's awesome though is actually we've roadmapped out this integration already. We've already taken a look at what it looks like and like the things we need to do. Most of the work that needs to get done to get Gridcraft and Llamascape into our ecosystem is just art. We already have almost all the stuff that we need from the tooling side of things to get them in. So there's like 1, 2 dev tasks that need to get done that are specific to Gridcraft and Llamascape. But otherwise, we've literally already built the platform. Everything that they have asked for is stuff we've already been working on. It's a really, really easy and interesting dev integration. And that's why it just makes sense. So with that, we are hiring another artist or so just to like maintain quality of art. So the really important thing is we want to enable their teams as much as possible, but we also want to keep the standard of what we've been building. We want to make sure whatever they bring in looks freaking awesome, looks top notch in terms of like pixel art. The pixel art that you guys see in our pre-alpha right now is not up to our standards of what we want it to be. We're actually also releasing our own new pixel art. So you're going to get that pretty soon on our end, I think. You're going to get new UI. You're going to get like a whole new Terra Villa. You're going to get like a ton of stuff like that coming, I think, not this sprint, but maybe the next sprint. And then we want to keep them to that same level of standard as well. So we want to do our own artists. We have an artist that we've already like been speaking to. They're coming on. But then beyond that, they're gonna have the ability to do their own questing, their own NPCs and stuff like that. Our tooling is pretty robust and it's pretty user friendly. So we're excited to see what they come up with.
And if you want a little sneak peek of what this new art is going to look like, we have leaked a couple photos. I think the white paper had one or two, and the recent tweet that's pinned to this space also, I think it had one or two pictures. So you can go take a look. And then, okay, let me just look back at the questions we had here. So this is actually going back to the airdrop with a 2-coin model, one for landowners and one for in-game coin. Okay, that's a little off, but how will XP in-game impact the airdrop of it all?
Yeah. So we're super excited about this airdrop. This will be huge for us in terms of like growth, marketing, and all that too. And also, we're so excited to just like reward you guys for being here early. And the truth is, you guys are still early. We haven't even started our growth push yet. So it's really still a great time to get into this ecosystem. But the idea is, you guys have been here. You guys have been putting in the work, the sweat, the tears. You've seen all the nitty gritty of what we're doing, and we're so excited to actually get this airdrop out to you guys for that reason. This airdrop will be multifaceted, and there will be several different ways that we offer it. So we're actually going to create an airdrop dashboard where you can check different criteria before the airdrop to see what you're potentially eligible for. And we want a lot of it to be a secret actually too. So the whole point of an airdrop is basically you want to seed an economy, give it like liquidity in order to actually have it used in game. So we want to reward what we consider healthy behavior for being here early and rewarding people who we think will actually use this token in ways that are healthy for the economy. So the worst thing you can do with an airdrop is give the token to somebody who actually doesn't even care about building, who doesn't care about your ecosystem, who doesn't care about your game, your vision, and all of that, and then they just sell it and create sell pressure. That's not good for anybody. You actually just gave it to somebody who actually isn't doing the ecosystem any good, and you gave it to somebody who actually didn't even care about like your community, your user base, and all that too. So this airdrop is all designed on rewarding people who we really think care about what we're doing, and that's why we're kind of keeping the actual rules behind it secret. But do note, we're going to make it somewhat visible. We're also probably going to add some other incentives too. Like we probably will do like some growth around the airdrop in terms of like retweet this, things like that. But it'll be like a one-time thing. We have a plan around that. But it's basically we want to see this project do well. Obviously, we want to reward all of you for being here. We want to make sure that we have a healthy starting point for the long term of this game.
Okay, so then game mechanics, will energy still be a thing for the beta release? And just so you guys know, we're no longer calling it the beta, it is chapter 1. So Luke has mentioned that the team wanted to rework and remove it entirely.
Yeah, so the team decided to keep it. It's a pretty good way to adjust and balance the game economy of berries, and also to curb like a botting advantage as well. So we're keeping that. It will be tweaked, and there'll be more ways to like replenish energy. There's stuff around that, so we're keeping it. It's gonna be slightly tweaked and redesigned, but that is something that will keep the economy a bit more balanced.
Okay, and then the last question we have in the type form was about cross-game utility. Is there any benefit to holding Gridcraft IDs and land as well as Pixels land? I know we can use our IDs wherever, but is there any added utility if you have both?
We haven't planned that yet, like in terms of like Gridcraft ID and Pixels land. There will be things that are considering the airdrop, and I like the idea of like multipliers too. I want in our airdrop dashboard, I want it to be kind of secret, but I also want you guys guessing. I want this system where it's like a check mark if you've done this, and it's just like airdrop requirement number one, and then you'll get to see if you have it checked or not. But I want it to kind of be a guessing game in itself. Maybe that's cruel, but I think it's going to be fun to add some spice and some flavor up to the airdrop. But that isn't one that we have currently planned. That's an interesting idea. So obviously, Gridcraft IDs, they do their own thing with bits. We don't need to affect that at all. Obviously, if you own a Gridcraft ID, you still get all the benefits that have been promised by Gridcraft. We don't change that. And then Pixel Land, you get all the benefits promised from Pixel Land as well too. I like the idea of cross utility stuff with that. We'll look into it, but nothing promised for that right now.
Okay, so we will hop over to other questions now. If you have any questions, you can type them in the Pixels general chat. Just make sure you tag me, or actually tag the community team. So add community team, and we will record one of your questions and we throw them in a separate channel just so that we can easily go through them and make sure we don't miss any. So go ahead, flood, do what you got to do. If any of you also would like to come up on stage with us and ask a question live on the Twitter space, just request and we will let you come up. So let me look at the questions we got. Question on rented plots. Are those rented from a landowner, or is Pixels renting those lands?
Yeah, so that's a part of the system that we want to do eventually, the sharecropper system. So there's kind of multiple versions that we're going to be working on. Initially, you're going to rent land from a central, what's it called? The Bureau of Land Management. It's like this new in-game thing that we're adding. It's a fun new UI, and like a fun new loop that you can do. So essentially, you'll rent it from there. V2 of this sharecropper system, if you want to read about it in the white paper, we want to add support for actually renting out farmland and kind of phase out the pixels-oriented one. That's just something that we need to design a bit more, and it's kind of tricky. And that'll add to the scope complexity of what we're doing. So that's also another thing to kind of point out too. When we ship this game, I actually think we're going to have one of the best blockchain games out on the market, at least one of the most polished ones, one of the more fun ones. That's super exciting. Like what we've built here over the last 6 months, I just want to give kudos to the team, how much they've built and how quickly they moved. It's not the easiest what they've done, but what they've accomplished is actually insane. And to go from where we were in January to literally, we'll probably have one of the leading blockchain games in terms of quality, in terms of econ out there. It's an awesome feat. So we're super excited to get that out. But then the whole idea is we still want to stick to our dates. So we want to get this game released when internally we've been saying it. We think there's value to getting it out sooner, getting like an awesome core experience out, and then getting feedback from you guys and iterating on top of that. So the number one thing that kills games is scope creep. It's planning too much. It's adding too many features without actually getting user feedback. And that's part of the core thing that we're trying to do here. Keep the scope in check, keep it high quality, keep it looking great, keep it feeling good, keep what we have balanced, and then iterate and adjust from there.
Okay, next question. So question about Gridcraft and other possible projects using tooling. So is the overall goal to have projects like Gridcraft / Llamascapes and others increase the value of the Pixel token? What other benefit does Pixels as a game company / game studio receive by allowing projects to use tooling? Financial, in their token or other, marketing their lands, etc.
Yeah, so the idea is we want these games to be able to differentiate themselves. So really, they're not even supposed to be competing games. They're supposed to be separate experiences that are tailored towards different audiences. And gaming is different than traditional startups, where if you have an email marketing SaaS startup, where you're helping email marketers make emailing better. And there's another product that does something similar. That's direction. Those products are more commodities. But then with gaming, it's interesting because games don't compete in the same way that traditional products would, and competition is not really the right way to see games. It's more about what experiences do you offer, who you're targeting, and what kind of game you're actually like building, and like the experience you want to craft. Where if we can separate these experiences enough, meaning if our tooling is good enough to create different game experiences, which we do believe it is, they're not even competing. We're actually just targeting different audiences, and we're actually offering more experiences than just the core Pixels experience that we don't need to spend all of our resources building. You know, Gridcraft and Llamascape, they're amazing teams. They were going to figure out something no matter what. This is a scenario where we can get them something quick. We can get them something awesome of high quality and give them the tools to kind of let them build out their heart's desires. So overall, their experience can get better. The experience that we can help offer to the entire world gets better. And the shared progress that we make on developing these tools can help make Pixels better.
Okay, will future projects that want to integrate with the Pixel universe be audited to avoid projects launching similar tokenomics / gameplay, like when Wolf Game launched a bunch of copy paste project launches that were where only, sorry, this is not written properly, only trying to cash out on success of the Wolf Game?
Yeah, 100%. So we'll be picky on these partners. We're into openness and interoperability. And we've been integrating. So here's an example. We've been integrating basically any NFT avatar into our game, because that's one place where it's like, if a project is a rug, we can actually still provide that project value. And we can provide this project like an interesting new use case for its holders that maybe got shafted. But with this thing, the economics and the econ are a lot different. So we are going to have a much different standard of quality for who we work with and who we partner with here. Gridcraft and Llamascape, top tier partners. We are so excited to be working with them. But we're going to be picky on who we actually allow to use this tooling. And we don't want to distract ourselves too much too early on. Again, scope creep kills games. We want to make sure the scope is kept in check. We want to make sure that we don't stretch ourselves too thin. So we're really just focused on supporting like a couple of projects early on. We've been talking to several other projects beyond just Gridcraft and Llamascape. There's a few other projects we might onboard as well too. But the idea is we want to keep that bar high. This is valuable tech. We don't want to just offer it to anybody. We want to make sure they're value add.
Okay, will current points be wiped after the airdrop? I think they mean XP probably, or maybe coins.
Yeah, so that's something that we're still figuring out on what we want to respect after the airdrop. The reality is we're creating a whole new blockchain-backed economy when we drop this game. So we want you to feel like the progress that you've made is going to be reflected accurately. I will say XP, I'll just leave this out because I think this is important. No, XP will be taken into account in this airdrop. It's like a very direct way for us to measure how much you've been playing the game and how committed you've been early on. So we think that's like one of the more fair measurements of that. In terms of when we actually release the game, we want to make sure that the game has like a good progression loop. We want to give you guys plenty of ways to progress in the game after that. We're also somewhat tweaking the leveling and skill system as well too. So there will be like a farming level, but there will also be other levels too.
Is there going to be an alpha release before Chapter 1?
So internally, yes. At first, we were thinking we only want the alpha to be available to us and like some specific playtesters. It actually might be beneficial for us to open it up to a larger amount of people, potentially landowners. That's something that we're going to be debating, but that will help make sure that the game is stable on launch. So that's potentially a benefit for everybody there. This is crazy. We want to launch a token and we want to launch a game on the same day. We think that's the only way that you should launch a token. And also, we won't launch the token on the day that we have planned if the game's not ready. We don't think you should launch a token. This is our stance. It's kind of an opinionated one, but we don't think you should launch a token unless there's a game behind it. We think you need day one utility for tokens.
It's going to be a big day. Okay. This is a good question. The white paper doesn't discuss different land types like water versus space. Can you give color on how different land types will impact the game loop?
Oh, yeah. So this is alpha that we can spell for sure. There will be different crops that you can only plant on different types of land, space, water, and land type of land. Certain crops you'll be able to plant on NFT land versus free land as well. And again, rarities will be respected in this regard as well too. So, and also the land will look pretty different. So there'll be trees that grow on space land versus the other type of land, water land, and all of that. So all this will be reflected. The land will look very visually different too. We've created art for each type of land.
Let me just look back here. So does renting soil mean private lands farming as it is now won't, but be available for non-holders. I think they're talking about like how right now you can have people come on your land.
Oh yeah, so if you don't own NFT land, if you don't own farmland, it's a single player experience. You won't be able to invite anybody else to the land. So when we're talking about the specs and we're talking about the rented land, right now it's single player only for the free to play use case. And yeah, you won't be able to invite other people to that. But it is a place that you can come back, bring a few items, upgrade them. I think they'll fit like 1 or 2 pieces of soil if they upgrade and purchase those, but they'll be very limited. So there's going to be a huge incentive to like actually visit other farms, and they won't be able to progress in the game unless they visit NFT farms.
So are the specific crops for certain lands available for farming for those who rent soil on those farms?
Yeah, so if they go to those farms, they'll be able to get them with a tax.
Okay, cool. Just a few more people are typing here. If anyone wants to come up on stage, if you remember, you can request, and we're happy to have you up with us. Okay, so when Discord OG reward?
Yep, so that'll be in the airdrop dashboard. I'm so excited to finally get that out. We've been waiting for blockchain backing. So yeah, you guys will get that. That'll be in the. I'm so excited to re-engage with you guys too. We have a lot of people who are here really, really early. They're called the OGs. And if you're an OG, you know who you are. So yeah, that'll be available in the airdrop dashboard. You'll see if you're eligible. In the airdrop dashboard, we'll have the option to connect your Discord, and we'll have the option to connect your Twitter, so that we can read that data. And that's where we'll finally do that. Oh, Dr. Poo Poo. Who? Oh, Doo Poo. Okay.
Good work. Hey, how's it going?
We brought you up, Dr. Doo Poo. Okay, in the meantime, while they're figuring this out, can you please explain how Pixel relates to other projects, or will it only be for Pixel? So the Pixel token will be cross-game and cross-universe. So again, this Pixel token will not affect the core gameplay loops or the tokens of any other projects. It's really just for cosmetics, but essentially we're going to do things like character effects, character trails, potentially the ability to like have a pet follow you around, and the shared part, this is in the white paper too if you guys want to check this out. We go into what's shared between these universes and what's not. One of the things that's shared is our profile system. So these upgrades will be attached to your file. So these things like the character effects and potentially pets, and that'll follow you around across universes, will be what's purchased with the Pixel token. So it'll be basically some cosmetic upgrades that follow you through this experience, just like a premium currency would.
Okay, and Dr. Dupu, are you there?
Yes, so my question was we are talking about white paper over here. So, what about black paper and brown paper?
I'm not sure if that's a joke, but for those of you that don't know, the term white paper is a financial term used in the business community. Luke, do you want to talk about it just for a little bit?
Yeah. So there has been talk about potentially moving away from the term white paper too. We've been using the term light paper a good amount too, so we've been mixing that up a bit. But yeah, the light paper, we have a bunch of modeling that we don't share with you guys. I'm curious how much we should include of that. But just note, behind this white paper that we've released, or light paper, I'm kind of interested in moving to that terminology, light paper, altogether. There's a lot behind it. So we have our own internal game design documents. We have like called Game Bible internally, and it's like it is huge. It's like basically describing every single piece of our game, how it works, how they operate together, all of that. Our light paper is a lot of that pulled together, and then we also have modeling, which is essentially getting all of the economics into spreadsheets and into other types of simulations that we've been doing in order to make sure that we actually set the right numbers and the right variables when we release this token. So things like grow times, things like the price of items in the store, exactly the exact number of tokens we should airdrop in order to not flood the economy or make it too scarce initially. These are the things that we have in the back of house that we've been developing as well too, that just aren't in the white paper.
Yeah, we can definitely move towards the term light paper. So do you have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. I didn't see any other questions in our general chat. So with that, I guess we can wrap it up here today. Thank you all for coming out. This has been really, really great. Tons of knowledge thrown at you, tons of exciting stuff. Luke, do you have any last comments you want to make?
Yeah, I mean, if you have any other questions, say them now or wait till next week. We do these AMAs weekly. There's a lot to talk about still, I feel like. feel free to ask questions in our general chat. Feel free to tag me in any of the associated projects. If you tag me in Llamaverse or if you tag me in Gridcraft, I'll answer there too. If you guys look at our Discord, I am the #1 largest messenger in the Discord over the last 90 days. I'm very active. So we're there to answer any questions. We're there to give more clarity into this. And the next chapter of Pixels is just now beginning. So we're super excited. Even if you guys just look at what we did last week, it's actually insane. Last week, we announced our rebrand. We got these partnerships together. We facilitated a lot of this too. There's an insane amount of work that's been going on this project. And now we're about to like turn the corner, start to get on top of growth, start to get on prepping up this token launch too. And again, the token launch, we're super excited about that. We got what we consider the best partner in the space for it. Can't announce that yet, but expect a lot there. So we're super excited about that. And stay tuned. Again, lots of benefits to holding farmland will be reflected in the airdrop. Time held and holding at the time of the token launch will be reflected in the airdrop as well too. So that's something to note. And yeah, thanks so much guys for staying tuned. Thanks for listening and thanks for asking questions.
Amazing. Bye guys.